checkers?
Tell your granddaddy gonna beat you.
I'm gonna
Tell your granddaddy gonna beat you.
Welcome to our first episode of Season 5 of the 98% Life After Prison podcast, a show dedicated to all the incarcerated people in North Carolina who will eventually be released back into our communities. We're also a podcast devoted to the idea that reentry begins the moment that someone is incarcerated. I'm April Barber.
And I'm Judy Van Wyk. Well, it's good to finally be back after taking some time off for what was hopefully my very last shoulder surgery. But before I went under the knife, I had a special opportunity to attend Parent Day at Orange Correctional Center. Parent Day is a day when children get to spend 4 hours with their parents and grandparents playing board games, doing artwork, painting the paws of therapy dogs, and basically having a chance to connect. The voice you heard at the top of the show is that of Ronald Ricks and his grandson Brandon playing checkers.
I like playing checkers, because it soothes me and calms me down.
But I'm very grateful for this program. Very grateful. This is very meaningful for someone who's been gone a long time. And this help you get implemented with your family. It's very beautiful and wonderful. I encourage anyone that has time to get involved with it. And I encourage a lot of prisons to get involved with it because it's very beneficial. Hold on, how we going to play first, man? How we jumping? No. How are we going to jump?
According to the North Carolina Department of Corrections, more than 20,000 children across the state have an incarcerated parent. Parent Day provides an opportunity for those children to spend extended quality time with their fathers and grandfathers without the strict rules and interruptions of a regular prison visit. The day is designed to strengthen family ties, which are vital to the child's well-being and can help support the parent's successful reintegration back into the community.
Melissa Radcliff designed the first Parent Day more than a decade ago with the help of the residents and staff at Orange Correctional. Today, Parent Day is held twice a year at 5 different prisons across the state. Let's listen to Melissa Radcliff describe her mission as the director of our children's place and find out what makes Parent Day so very special.
We are part of a program within Coastal Horizons. Coastal's based in Wilmington, and we are based in Durham, do work statewide. And our focus is really on how communities can support children who have an incarcerated or returning parent. And we do a combination of a lot of professional workshops for folks across the state who work with children and families. And then we do some in-prison programming, mostly through Parent Day and our Fresh grant through the state.
How did you get involved with this work?
Strictly by accident. I'm definitely not one of a kid who woke up in 4th grade and said, I think this is what I'd like to be doing. I've worked for nonprofits for quite a few years, spent about a dozen years working with crime victims, and then had an opportunity just to be the director of our children's place about 18 years ago. And at first I didn't think I wanted it, partially because I didn't know anything about, at the time, incarcerated mothers. And the recruiter at the time said, the problem is nobody does. We're not talking about this. You've done work as a court advocate. We'd love you to consider the position. So I took the position after a couple of interviews, still hesitant, but the board chair at the time said, you take it just for 6 months. We just want to see if you'll like it, and we have some grant money. We don't want to lose that. So will you come with us for 6 months? It's like a test drive. If you don't like it, you can leave. But if you like it, and you will, you can stay. Clearly, they knew what they were talking about because it's been 18 years.
So how exactly does a children's place work in the community?
Yeah, so I spent a fair amount of my time, as I said, doing professional workshops. So if there's a conference around children or families or a conference focused on the justice system, I always submit a proposal to be there so that we can talk about really raising some awareness, encouraging people to even think about the fact that they have a child in their classroom or their after school program, or they will if they don't right now. Thinking about the awareness piece, the language that we use, a little bit about some statistics, the impacts of parental incarceration, and then what communities can do to support them. And then oftentimes what happens is if I speak at a conference, say the Smart Start conference, undoubtedly folks in the room will say, will you come to my community and do something for all of our staff or everyone in student support services for our school district or whatever particular group they're part of. And so it tends to go out that way where it's starting with one, but then spreads to individual communities.
What is it that we in the community really need to understand about why your work is so important?
Yeah, so the number one response we get from folks across the state is something along the lines of, I have never thought about children of incarcerated parents. It's not that I don't care, it's that no one has ever asked me to think about it. So I think as a community, we need to recognize that we deliberately or not deliberately have overlooked and continue to overlook a group of children. I think many times we hear something through the grapevine, we see something online, we get something in a feed on a phone about a crime that occurred or someone's arrested, they went to jail, and we look at it quickly or not quickly, we read it, we scroll, but we oftentimes don't think about who they've left behind, which may be families and may include children. So I think we need to do some work around that, but then also thinking about the fact that, as you know, right, the whole base of this podcast is that folks don't stay in prison forever. They're coming home. And so what does reentry look like then from the parent perspective? Or let me say, what does reentry look like from an individual's perspective? But then what does it look like from a parent perspective, if that's also a role they have? And then what does it mean for their kids as well? There's more and more research showing the impacts of parental incarceration in terms of anxiety or depression or kind of questioning maybe even self-worth, like maybe I wasn't good enough. My parent chose to use drugs over spending time with me. Kids can blame themselves for what happened. They can feel like they're destined to follow in their parents' footsteps. So I think we have some obligation to say, whoa, you are not destined to follow in your parents' footsteps. And you're an amazing kid. And how can we support you? And to appreciate that they, in fact, may very much love their parent and want a relationship. And they need adults to make that happen. So I always say, if I'm a child in Asheville and my mom is sitting in the prison in Raleigh and I'd like to spend time with her and I'm 6, I can't do that unless I have adults in my life. I can't get on a bus as a 6-year-old and go from Asheville to Raleigh. I need the adults in my life to be part of that. I think we need to look at the kids or look to the kids a bit more to say, tell us what's working, what's not working, what would be helpful for you in this particular situation.
Part of your work also takes place in North Carolina's prisons. Can you describe the work that you do there?
So we've been doing Parent Day. We started at Orange Correctional probably about a dozen or so years ago, and it was just one of these random things. I got some notes from a meeting that took place at the prison, and our name was mentioned in the notes. So I called the person who took the notes and said, if you're going to put me in meeting minutes, please invite me to the next meeting, right? I don't appreciate being talked about and not being there for it. So Parent Days are an extended visit. They're usually 4 hours. We've done a couple of different variations, but the one that we've stuck with most is the caregiver is not there. And we've been at only male facilities. I shouldn't say only. We've been at male facilities, which isn't to say we wouldn't be at a female facility. We've just never been invited in. Kids are there with their parents, with their fathers or grandfathers, depending on the situation. And then we bring in just a boatload of things for them to do. Arts and crafts, so maybe decorating T-shirts or painting birdhouses, or we've done pumpkins in the past when it was around Halloween. We bring in lunch. It's always real food, so it's never prison food. We bring in lunch. We have someone who makes cookies, so the kids decorate cookies with their dads at the end. We bring in a lot of board games. You can't have any technology, so kids actually have to leave tech at the door. And then we always have a book display. We had that from the very beginning, partially because we want to encourage kids to be readers, but it's also a chance for parents and grandparents to learn a bit more about their kids, because if you're going to a book display, you can learn that your child is really into sci-fi, or your child really likes this type of fiction, or your child likes, and so they can pick the books together. Kids can decorate a book bag and bookmarks, and we encourage the parents to write a note inside the books so that when kids go home, they can open the book and say, oh, look, here's another memory of that day. Here's a message from my parent or grandparent.
My second question is, did everyone have a good time? Yes! Okay, that's good to hear. So, I want to thank you all for being here today, but we always close with a chance to say what we liked best about the day. So, who would like to start? Me. Oh, gosh.
And then we wrap up the day with I always say it's a shape around the perimeter of the room. It's not necessarily a circle, it's a shape. And then we go around, everybody has a chance to share what they liked best about the day. And so we ask kids, parents, staff, visitors, volunteers, and I always have a box of Kleenex because you just never know who's going to need that box of Kleenex. But that's our way of wrapping up before we do the last goodbyes and hugs and kisses before the kids meet back up with the caregivers and then head home.
What I noticed when I recorded that day was how the kids and the parents, the first part of the day, they were just almost getting to know each other. They were just getting to feel really comfortable. And as the day progressed, they became more and more comfortable with each other. And there was a lot more teasing back and forth and that kind of thing.
So we always meet with the parents the day before. And in the past, or early on, I didn't do that. And then there was a chaplain at Orange Correctional who said, I think you should meet with the fathers the day before. And I said, well, why? I'm happy to do it, but why? He said, I think some of them are nervous. And I said, oh, I'm sure they're not nervous. And he said, I think you should go. So I did. And I've just made it part of our routine. You know, partially we just go through the day and answer any questions. I always check on, is there any new family drama that we should know about? But also ask them how they're feeling and how they're doing and what they're excited about or nervous about. And in every group, undoubtedly one or two will say, yeah, I'm nervous. It's been a while since I've seen my children, or I'm not used to 4 hours with them, or I'm not used to being there without mom or grandmom or a caregiver. So, and I'll say, you're going to have a chance to practice being dad, because if your child accidentally knocks over their drink, you're going to help clean it up, right? You can't just pass it off to someone else. And so thinking about ways to practice being parents. But you're right. And we talk about that at the beginning, that kids may be a little bit hesitant. They may not run over to hug you, or they may feel a little bit like they're keeping a distance. I said, but don't worry. Over the course of that 4 hours, you will start to see them feel more comfortable. You'll feel more comfortable as a team. They'll start to warm up. And you're right. By the end, they're like shadows, right? Dad goes to get more blue paint, and you've got a little one or even a big one tagging behind, right? And so by the end, you can imagine the saying goodbye part can be tough.
Why is, I know this is probably a very obvious question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Why is Parents' Day so important to the parent and the children alike?
So kids don't stop loving their parents when they go to prison. Like, I mean, you were there. You watched the body language, the facial expression, the words. Kids still love their parents. Now, they might not like them on a certain day, and that's true of a lot of kids and a lot of parents. They don't like them on a certain day, but they still love them. So Parent Day gives them a chance to express that love in a way that's a little bit different than what we refer to as a regular visit, a short prison visit or a virtual visit or a phone call. Kids, if they don't know the truth, are going to fill in the blanks. And they're going to fill it in with what they see on TV or what someone tells them or what they watched online about where their parent is. So being at Parent Day means that kids can see that their parents are okay, right? They're safe and they're wearing clothes, seasonally appropriate clothes, and they're being fed and somebody's kind of looking out for them. It gives kids a chance to maybe ask their parents some of those tough questions. Like, what got you here? Or when are you coming home? What is it going to look like? I remember before the pandemic that a father was there with his 2 teenage daughters, and they sat at a table in the corner and never did any of the activities, nothing. And it was pretty evident they were in some intense conversation. So either at lunch or afterwards, I just said, is everything okay? I mean, obviously you don't have to do any of the activities, but you just seemed like you were pretty intent in that conversation. He said, I get out in about 6 weeks. And so that conversation was with them about what it's going to look like when I leave and come home. And he said, I don't know if I would have had that opportunity until I got home. So this was sort of a prep for that. So thinking about having some difficult conversations that may be easier to happen there while your hands are busy doing a craft activity and while the caregiver's not there. So maybe as a child, I can't ask these questions because if mom's there, she's going to say something, or if grandmom's there or granddad's there, he's going to say something. But because I have dad all to myself, I can ask some of those questions. For parents, it's hopefully some motivation that this is, maybe making some better choices means you get to stay with your kids when you get out. It gives them a chance to learn about their kids. Life in prison can feel like the world is standing still. Life continues for kids. I remember one dad saying, oh my gosh, when I left, she was like in the gaga stage and now she's 8 and I've lost some time and I've got to catch up on what that means to be the father of an 8-year-old versus the father of a 3-year-old.
And there were grandfathers there, and that seemed very special to me, the relationship between a grandchild and the grandparent.
Yeah, I mean, I think we often, as I said from the beginning, often overlook children and their parents when parents go to prison, but that grandparent-grandchild relationship is pretty amazing. And in some cases, those are grandparents who were caring for grandkids before they went to prison. So I love seeing grandparents and grandkids. The grandparents usually are the ones at the end who say, whew, I'm exhausted, right? Even though we talk about that the day before about getting some rest and they're going to wear you out. They're like, whew, I am tired. If it's little ones or if it's older ones who are just sort of nonstop, even in a relatively small space. But I just think what an amazing experience to build some of those relationships and create some of those memories with grandparents. Yeah, pretty cool.
Doing this work, what do you think the most important thing that you've perhaps learned yourself, first as a provider and then as a human being?
Yeah, so I worked with crime victims for 12 years. I was in court. I mean, I've worked from all the way from someone calling a 24-hour hotline to say they were sexually assaulted, to working to get a protective order, to being there for impact statements, court proceedings. I've all of it. I've been to the police department and hospital with rape victims getting a rape kit. I've seen all of that. That's an experience that I'm so grateful I've had. I probably will not go back to doing that, but doing this work has helped me to really understand that it's an adversarial system. We know that, but there's so much more gray that we just do not pay attention to, or we choose not to pay attention to. So you might have a child who is not technically a victim. They're not listed in the police report, but they were in the home, or they were out of the home. They were at school when their parent was arrested, but they're feeling the impacts of arrest and incarceration and reentry. But because they're not listed as sort of an official victim, we oftentimes overlook what it means for them. So for me, understanding more about the gray, and then also just appreciating that you can love a person, you can love your incarcerated parent a whole bunch and still not like what they did or what they did to you or what they've done to others. Those are separate and yet connected conversations. I think we kind of get caught up in bad people do bad things all the time. Of course, we shouldn't like them. And kids are thinking, but that's my mom, that's my dad. And you've just said I look just like them. So does that mean you don't like me too because you don't like my parent? I just think there is so many more nuances that we just don't think about. And I'm reminded of almost on a daily basis. I would say that's probably the biggest piece I've learned, both professionally and as just a person doing this.
Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you think is important that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I feel like it would be leaving something out if I also just didn't mention that we have a program that with some federal funding through the state called FRESH, which is Family Reentry Support and Help. And it's had multiple pieces to it. We did training early on with prison staff about their role in making visits more child-friendly or at least child-welcoming. We did site visits at 14 prisons to look at their spaces. We created a checklist for those prisons to redesign their spaces. And they actually received money. So there are 13 prisons across the state, reentry facilities, that have redesigned their visiting spaces to make them more child-friendly. And then we've had case managers at several prisons doing parenting classes, case management, and then setting up what we call special visits so families can come in and really have the visiting space to themselves. That sort of changes the conversation because we've had a lot more success with that at the women's prison in Anson than we have with the men's prisons. We have a waiting list at Anson. We have not had that at the men's prison. So it's been interesting to see that evolve over the past 3 or 4 years and what's going to happen with it going forward.
You two, little ones, what did you like best about today? What was your favorite part of today?
My favorite was having so much fun and listening.
So much fun in listening. It's good to have good listeners, right?
Yes.
Ben Jr., what did you like best about today?
My favorite is I had fun and I get to see my dad.
Yes, very cool. What did you like best about today? You with your sparkly glasses.
I think just spending time seeing my siblings and my dad.
I had a great time with spending time with my children and doing the activities.
Melissa is now working primarily with men. But when she was first hired, the goal of our children's place was to build a residential facility for incarcerated pregnant women to have their babies and then to stay with them in this separate facility until their children went to school. But then the recession of 2008 hit and all that funding for the facility disappeared. What didn't disappear were the thousands of children with an incarcerated parent. And so our children's place shifted its focus. Can you imagine, April, if you had been in a facility like that when you gave birth to Colt?
Well, see, I kind of see it being a catch-22, being that I had an extended sentence. I don't know if being able to stay with him like the first 2 years would have done more harm than good. I would have had a more difficult time breaking the bond that I spent with him. Although I did enjoy the opportunity to have separate visitations through Match and other programs, I see that it working for people that have shorter sentences, but those that have a longer sentence, I can see it kind of playing out both ways.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. The things you never think of. Still, I think it was a cool idea, don't you?
Yeah, it's a cool idea. When I gave birth to Colt, I did give birth, fortunately, in a hospital, not in prison like TV portrays, though sometimes that does happen if they don't get to the hospital soon enough. But I gave birth in a hospital and was fortunate enough to place him with a family friend. I actually briefly saw her come to pick him up on the third day when I had to give him away. You know, it wasn't a long introduction, luckily, but it was, brief enough to see that someone did actually come and pick up my child, because some people don't have that and they have to wait for the state, or in fact, they see someone from CPS come and pick up their child. And I'm sure that's very devastating.
Yeah, I'm sure that is. Wow. It's a bit surprising that most of Melissa's work happens in male facilities instead of women's facilities. But as you mentioned, Match, I understand that there is programming for mothers and children at NCCIW. Did you work with any of those programs while you were inside?
Match is a program that's separate from visitation. For once a month, you can visit with your child for 3 hours once a month. You can be able to cook with your child, to read to them. When I was there then, they had a nursery for those that had very small children, but it's separate from visitation. And they also have Mother Read, and that's a program where you can read books and send cassettes to your child.
That sounds like a good program.
Yeah, it was cute.
Speaking of parents and children, it so happens I ran into a gentleman who had attended Parent Day in late May. His name is Ben Flagg, and I ran into him at Weaver Street in Hillsborough in late August. Turns out, he'd been released a few weeks after Parent Day, and he was anxious to share his experience of that day with me. Let's hear what Ben has to say about Parent Day and about parenting in general. And let's find out what he's doing with his newfound freedom.
All right, so what we got here today is dog trainers. You ever see dogs in prison? This is the best dog training you'll ever see.
So my name is Ben Flagg. I'm originally from Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. I have 2 kids, a son and a daughter. My son will be 8 years old next month, September 13th. And my daughter's 2.5 and will be 3 January 25th. So I have 2 children by 2 different women. My son's currently in Rocky Mount, and my daughter is currently in Greenville, North Carolina. I talk to them every day, and they don't go without. I love them to death, and in hopes of in the next year or so have them move down here closer to me so there's not so much of a distance between.
So I met you at Parents' Day, and you were there with your son and your niece, is that right?
Yes. So, Parents' Day, that was a day when I was able to see my son for the first time in a couple years since my incarceration. And while nervous for the questions that I was sure he was going to ask, it was great because instead of my way of thinking of, oh, this is not going to turn out that well, because in the back of my head, hey, it's my fault or whatever, where have you been, Dad, things like that. It wasn't. It was actually the total opposite. Now, he had questions, yes, but the whole time he was there, it was, Daddy, 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 let's do this, let's go play this, let's do this. And like, it was all about me. So even for as old as he's getting, he's still looking and he still knows, hey, that's my daddy. Let's go do something, which brought great joy to me, knowing that gap of absence hasn't totally changed his way of thinking and feelings about me.
It sounds like he really loves you.
Yes, he loves me a lot, and I'm looking forward to strengthening that bond, so that way there will never be a shadow of doubt that I wasn't there enough, or that I didn't care enough, or there will be nothing like that should ever cross his mind.
What were his questions when he did on that day?
So one of his questions were, hey, Daddy, are you coming back? And what he meant coming back to where he was living, Roanoke Rapids. And, you know, I was honest with him. I was like, look, Daddy's not ready quite yet to come back there. One of my biggest things was changing people, places, and things. And so by coming here, I'm changing my places. By training dogs, I'm changing my things. And I'm surrounding myself with people that have my best interest at heart. And while he might not have understood that fully as I intended, he at least understood, like, okay. And then came his next question was, hey, are you getting back with Mommy? Again, this really the same answer. Is like, look, I'm not quite there yet. Is it a possibility? Absolutely. Will it happen? Maybe. But until that does, just know that I'm here regardless, and I will always be able to be reached.
What was it about that day? What was special to you about that day?
So about that day particularly, there was a lot of factors in it. There was other kids there, and there was a lot of people able to meet their kids, but it wasn't in a prison aspect. No, it was, there's games, there's food, there were dogs, and all the kids loved the dogs. And I think, and actually I know all the guys that were there come up to it after, and even days after, were like, hey, look, my kids, all they talk about is them dogs that were there. They got to play with the dogs and finger paint with the dogs. And it was a great experience because it wasn't prison related. There wasn't an ounce of reform or anything. It was just kids having fun with their parents or grandparents without a care in the world. And I think that's the biggest outcome of that day, was kids got to be kids with their parents or with their grandparents.
Oh, good job. Want to give him a treat? Car, sit.
Down.
Hey,
Paw. Yeah, I really want to be a dog trainer because after all, I can learn how to teach dogs and my dog at home.
So while you were in prison, you started to work in the dog training program. Can you tell us a little about that and what it's provided for you?
So the original company that the program was branched under was EENP, Ears, Eyes, Nose, and Paws. The program that they provided for us in prison was called ABLE, at both ends of the leash. And the motto behind all of this is partnering people with dogs to change lives. And when I came into incarceration, I was broken. I was lost. And I heard someone once before, you can't help yourself until you help somebody else, unless you're helping somebody else. In which case is very much true. By training these dogs to help somebody else, helping myself, I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about other people. I'm learning about empathy. There's a saying in AA, it works if you work it. And having been lost and searching for a light, Abel was that light that showed me the way to go. Not just the program itself, but the people I met in it. When I first got in there, 75% of the people in there were with life sentences. But having said that, they were the most caring, the most understanding, and willing to help a lost soul like me.
And now you're out and you are still working for EENP. Can you tell me just briefly about that?
So EENP, they offer a variety of services. They offer work release and how can I word this? Job readiness. So after having been in the program for 18 months and having been at the Green Clothes camp, I was offered a position as a dog trainer there. Having been there, I worked more closely with clients and with grad dogs that have been in the program for a while and or looked upon about ready to go to a client. So we offer client team training where the dogs meet the potential clients and we base who's going to be a good match for who.
What would you say to other fathers who have been separated from their children? What have you learned from your own experience?
I would say that never stop trying, because the day you stop trying is the day that you fail. Your kids, you've got kids out there, they're looking for you. They're looking for the father that hasn't either been there for a while, or just know that they're looking for you. And it might be rough. But just like a question never asked is a question never answered. A voice that's never spoken is a voice never heard. So if you don't speak your part in it, then they'll never know. Sometimes just reaching out is all they need. A check-in, a hey, how you doing? Is everything okay? Little things like that matter and mean the world to them. That way they don't never feel like they're forgotten. I would say always give it your best. Always try. And you never know. You just saying, hey, how are you doing might mean the day to them.
Bingo again!
Oh yeah, you got bingo twice.
We got two bingos! I get 2 prizes!
Good advice. Never stop trying. Well, that's our show for today.
Join us next time when we meet a man who served over 33 years in prison and wrote a memoir about his experience. Until then, check us out on our Facebook and Instagram, and you can reach out to us through our website at www.the98-lifeafterprisonpodcast.com.
We're going to leave you with the sound of the closing minutes of Parent Day. Until next time, this is the 98% Life After Prison.
Bye, y'all.
You want to go first?
Yeah. Doing this to him.
It's your fault. Just spending time with my daughter, of course, and seeing the guys, hanging out with their kids and getting a free makeover.
I want to thank all of you for letting us insert ourselves in your lives here today. We are total strangers to you and your families, and you let us be part of 4 hours here on a Saturday. We appreciate that. Thank you so much. So this is our time to do final goodbyes, hugs, kisses, packing up bags. My gift.
I love you.
Yeah, you too. I don't want to go.
I don't want you to go either.
Oh, wait, I got to get all of my stuff.
See what she did to my face?